All right. Can you see that? Okay. Um, so this, I'm talking about high fidelity wraparound case management, which has come and gone over the years, I would say, as a trendy set of terms when it comes to children's case management services. And I'll talk a little bit about why, I think. But what I'm hoping to do today is just let you know that it's still around at the Opportunity Alliance, serving Cumberland and York County, and also at Wings, serving the Bangor region. And we're the only two agencies in Maine who are providing this kind of case management right now, though that is going to change soon, I believe. So Titus wanted me to talk about this because generally speaking, we are working with high fidelity wraparound with very complex children. And for the purposes of this discussion, the Opportunity Alliance and Wings provides high fidelity wraparound case management exclusively to children involved with the Department of Corrections. Does anybody have questions about that? Okay. So this is just a little slide about the Opportunity Alliance because I didn't know who was coming today to know about if people knew about CAP agencies. So the Opportunity Alliance has some community action work, which I did not do a thorough list, but I just chose the pieces that are pretty common. And then some mental health services, just to give the context of where I work and where I'm coming from. So the Opportunity Alliance and Wings, so I don't work for Wings, so I'm hoping I don't misrepresent them in any way, have a contract with the Department of Corrections to provide high fidelity wraparound services, which is a case management system. Okay, so people have probably heard of this terminology before. It has been around since the 80s, had a big kickoff then, went away, and now it's coming back. There's some foundational information, which I'll talk about in a second, that's supposed to, that is guiding this practice, which is an evidence-based case management practice. I'll talk for a minute about wraparound services in Maine and sort of trends there. And then there's these principles, which again are the guiding aspects of this case management service. Okay, so again, it's trendy, to be honest with you. And so what does it really mean? This is designed to be a process-based case management. So if you picture your most complex student probably has significant mental health problems, perhaps impacted significantly by generational poverty or untreated mental health condition, and experiences with police departments or with the Department of Corrections. These are situations that are complex and probably need a higher level of case management than what is common. The idea then is to help really keep the pulse on this is a process to sort of teach, correct some messages that have been received to the family about how we got here. So it is designed to bring teams together instead of branching off into silos. Families tend to drop off on services that require them to repeat their story a lot of different times. And again, those common principles, which I'll come back to in a second. And the other piece too, which is not on this slide, but it is designed to create a community inclusion that these children often are no longer experiencing because they've been pulled out of communities by being put into hospitals or residential placements or Long Creek or whatever entity of the state that they're in. And so it is just a designed side effect should be some tighter community inclusion and for the community to once again accept this child as one of the community and should remain in the community instead of being sent out to a different one. So that's sort of like a high level overview. Wraparound in Maine is seeing a resurgence. There was an initiative some years ago. There was and initiatives come with money, right? So there was some money that came with an initiative to provide this level of case management with some expected outcomes for a handful of years, starting in 2007. The Opportunity Alliance was in the pilot for this, and so we are one of the two agencies that continued with this service even after the pilot ended, because Department of Corrections decided it was worthwhile and wanted it to continue. Now, as in right now, I had a meeting about it today, actually. There is an initiative, again, to allow case management agencies to choose whether or not they want to provide this level of case management again. This is an option. We've not seen any of the policy regarding it. It was supposed to come out in September. So you might see that this term comes back with a higher frequency than it once did, because it's coming back to some agencies, and with that comes some money. Children and families would have access to a higher level of financial support if agencies choose to do wraparound services. I can't speak to what any agency is going to choose to do, because none of the agencies will make a public statement until they see what the policy is going to say, right? So expect that some agencies will start offering this service to the highest acuity children this year, next year. Somebody have questions about that? What's going on right now? Okay. All right. So regardless of agency, there should be guiding principles to make sure that this is a evidence-based service, sticks to Fidelity. It's right in the name, right? The High-Fidelity Wraparound. So these are the guiding principles. Regardless of agency, regardless of practitioner, these are what wraparound case management stands for. We've all seen these terms. None of them jump out as very unique, right? I would say that's probably true, but I would like to talk about a couple of them at a little bit more length, because it's a little more to what the eye can see. Family voice and choice. This is sort of the hallmark of wraparound, and it can be at conflict at times with what is potentially expected of children. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about in a second. But if you picture, again, your sort of highest acuity family and student, there have been messages over time about what should or shouldn't have happened, about what could or couldn't have happened, and how we got here. And so this is an opportunity for people to be heard in a way that puts their voice in, not the professional's voice, but puts their voice as sort of like the thesis. This is what we're doing here, and how are the professionals helping us with that, versus a medical model, which will say, here is your diagnosis, and here are the providers that will help you with that. I'll give you an example, and since you are educators, this will sound hard for a minute, but I'll come around to the other end. So recently in our wraparound program, we had a 16-year-old client who was expelled. And the family owned a landscaping/paving business. And I had a newer wraparound case manager working with them. And the family did not say this at first, but it became clear that it was not the goal to return to school. Even though everybody can point to graduating with a high school diploma leads to better outcomes left, right, and center. Through a process of sort of trust and being non-judgmental, the family was able to say outright, you can make all the recommendations you want about this expulsion plan and returning to school, but it's not really that important to us. We have this family business. He's going to inherit it. He's come as far as he can go in a traditional educational model. And so we sort of nod our heads and we talk about the return to school plan, expulsion plan, but we're not going to do it. And even within our team, that was so hard for people to hear, because we all believe in continuing with school, right? Right up until the very end. But this family was able to say, we're not going to do that. And so point us into the direction of the resources that are going to help us with what we want to do. And that was just unusual. And even within my own team, it took a lot of talking through in a non-judgmental way. Like, they were able to tell you, we don't want those resources. They're not a good use of our time. but our family could use some other resources if you were able to like hear us and not judge it. And so that's what we did. But it wasn't without its conflict, right? It's for sure people certainly wanted to convince this family that going back to school was the right thing to do. And again, that's not like the most beautiful or perfect example, but it was just a time where even within my own team, there was conflict around whether or not we should accept a family's plan as okay and working with it. And we did. This was a 16-year-old, so there was some choice there with not returning to school. So I want to talk about that for a sec. Okay, yeah. So that's what I was going to say about family voice and choice. Okay, and outcomes. So there's a lot of data that goes into evidence-based practices in order to be congruent with the high fidelity model. You need to collect a lot of data, send it to people who analyze it, compare it to other standards, right? So these are some of the evidence-based outcomes. There are a lot, and if you go on the National Wraparound Institute website, there's a ton. But I think these are the ones that kind of jump off the page to me because I see them in real life, if you will. That participation of, I'll say this anecdotally, participation at even a moderate level leads to these outcomes. This is a model that requires a lot of participation by youth and parents alike. And sometimes that's not really up their alley. But when we talk about the number one thing that parents and youth agree with is they do not want to be in trouble anymore, right? So less charges. And so that's sometimes the hook for saying, why not try it? No one likes this feeling of being in trouble. And then we measure these things, even though they're too nuanced. These are some of our criteria that we measure to ensure that we're meeting the mark and having data that shows outcomes with less out-of-home placements. That includes Long Creek, improved school functioning, that's children returning to school who have been expelled, less suspension, less, for the most part, it's about expulsion. Improved community involvement. We track that youth or their families are involved in one or more community practice, and it could be something formal or informal. And then it's a self-report about improved relationships within the house through at the end of the time of the wraparound process. So those are some of the outcomes that we continue to measure. Okay. And again, this is a little theoretical because it's designed a certain way, and then in practice it's a certain way, right? But there is still like you can achieve for the perfect situation. These are the phases of wraparound. We want to be clear with youth and families that there are phases and talk about them so that people know where they are in the practice, instead of what we often hear, and you've probably heard it too, youth and their parents saying, we've never seen that treatment plan. We never talked about this before. We have no idea how much more time we have in the program, that kind of thing. Everybody's heard that. So we talk about these phases. How do we know that we're on track? And here they are. We're developing a team. We're immediately working on a crisis plan, which is unusual. Usually it's the beginning of a treatment model is all about engagement and attaching and this kind of thing. This is like an assumption that we need a crisis plan right away. There's already been a lot of problems here. Let's talk about what we're going to do, even if it's between now and the next appointment of when a crisis arises. So that happens immediately. We're also doing an assessment at the beginning called the Strengths, Needs, and Cultural Discovery. That's SNCD. This is one of the evidence-based assessments. So this is an assessment that captures the family's values and interests in a way that other clinical assessments probably do not. So we're eliciting different types of conversation than what youth and their families are used to in an intake assessment, right? Because we're trying to hear about what's important to them and what's going well, and how do we grow it. Making a plan. That's the team plan. How are we going to get stable? How are we going to stay stable? Implementing the plan, and then we talk about how we're going to step out of high fidelity wraparound and maybe into a more traditional children's case management or other less intensive services. Here's another way of saying what I just said, that the 4 phases are hello, help, healing, and hope. And this is how I present it to families a lot of the time. This is language that pretty much anybody can get on board with. And we want to start with hope and end with hope. And so we can be sure that this model helps us keep on track for this. This is different. Remember, the idea here is this is different than other traditional medical model services that it is likely this youth has already failed out of by the time we get to this point. So we want to be like holding the hope at all times. It also helps people stay engaged with the service. Okay. I think this is the end. So now that you've heard what that is, what do we do? So right now, the only providers in Maine are the Opportunity Alliance and Wings. And right now, both agencies are only providing this service to those who are DOC involved or at high risk of DOC involvement, which is a super gray area for us to determine who is or is not high risk of possible involvement. The good news is, and I don't know where everybody is teaching right now, but other agencies are likely to adopt this model this year or next. And so it is likely that you'll see a higher level of case management service and a family-based case management service in the near future. Okay, and then here's the website for more information. This is the website, if you will, for the Wraparound Initiative nationally. There's a lot of publications that come out of there. This is the agency that manages and owns some of the data collection processes to be sure that we are reporting out nationally about the model. And now I think that might be truly the end. Yeah, that's truly the end. Okay. So that is my brief, hopefully interesting overview on high fidelity wraparound case management, which is a tiny pocket of case management options in Maine. There's right now not serving a huge community of people, but it could be. Anybody have any questions? Is anybody from York or Cumberland County? Okay.
Awesome.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, looks like we're very informative and definitely eager to hear more. Especially going into next year, I think it'll be very, interesting to see what comes for guidance as well, and how it can be a good approach to case management. Very excited about all that.
It'll be really interesting to see if there is interest in broadening out, other agencies re-adopting this. This is not brand new. Anyone who's been in the mental health field for a while, and probably other fields too, have heard this terminology before. So it's not new. It's just new to us again.
Mm. Well, I'll talk for a minute while just to give some brief updates, and if anyone has a question, feel free to put it in the chat while I give a few updates. In the chat, as promised in the beginning, you have your Power Hour survey links. So at the end, please give you feedback on the session. It really helps us plan for future sessions as well, and what we can do to support you, our educators, and your students in the best way possible. To get your certificate, the links in the chat as well. And then I am posting a link for students to get involved in our transition work here in Maine. Youth and student voice are essential in everything that we do. That is how Transition Maine got started 2 years ago, really, with Titus, myself, and my co-chair Dylan Campbell of Maine Parent Federation. And together we've built a really incredible initiative that's gotten national recognition, and that has made the difference in involving youth, high school, middle school, and high school students in the change that we're looking to have, in Maine. Students, and you'll see this on the form here, and I'm going to paste it right now. Uh, Students come from all over, can apply from all over the state. We have a lot of students right now in Southern Maine. We would love to expand that footprint statewide and build we'd like to have students who are all the way down to 10 years old. Their voice and their feedback and just their perspective is really helpful for all of us as we continue to reach more students, so that way they can have opportunities to support their education, their employment aspirations, and their independent living aspirations beyond high school, because that time will come sooner than any of us sometimes expect it. I know it did for me when I was transitioning from high school into adulthood. So just wanted to put that plug in there. Please spread the word to any of your colleagues uh, uh, in different schools or in the same school even. We're definitely looking to expand this footprint that we've built over the past 2 years. We have some great members right now, and it's a really cool experience for your students. Plus, they get paid as well. They get paid. It's a paid opportunity, a paid work opportunity for them to um, have input, to have leading input, I should say. They lead the way on everything. Titus always says there are the members are our bosses, really. We just support them, and they drive everything forward. So that's in there. And if there are any questions, for sure, as well on that, you can reach out to Titus as well. I will I put her email right there, and she'd be happy to send along any information or connect you with one of us, Dylan or I, as well. So that is my spiel for the day. Any other questions on today's session? I thought, again, great information that we had, truly. And I encourage you to follow up and stay tuned to what impact it can have in your part of the state. But it's 3:27, and I know time is very valuable to all of you. So we're going to give you some of that time back today. I'll stay on for a few minutes while a few moments, just in case there are any questions. But other than that, thank you all for being here. Truly appreciate all that you do for students in our schools and in education, and hope you have a fantastic rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.